All right. So let's talk today about the 6 secrets that all narcissists keep. Yeah, they're super secretive. And I want to make sure you know what those secrets are. I know because I've seen them keep them. I've seen it in, my law practice. I've seen it in dealing with them in a negotiation setting, in business, in relationships, in all sorts of settings, in helping people all over the world at this point now in all sorts of negotiations. And so it's time to expose those secrets. All right. So number one is they go through your stuff when you're not watching. Did you know that? They go through your stuff when you're not watching. They're going through your drawers. They're going through your phone. They're going through your computers. I know it's super creepy, but it's true. They're super insecure people and they just want to know what you're up to and they want information and they're gathering information in case they might need it down the road. They're taking notes and they will maybe use it down the road. I mean, they kind of assume that the relationship may not last. They don't know whether it's business or personal. They've been down this road before. And so they kind of think that maybe they might need it down the road. And I do have a whole video, by the way, on the 10 unsettling things that narcissists do when they think that you're not looking. Definitely check that out. But one of the secrets that they keep is that they are looking through your stuff when you're not watching. So that's number one. Number two is they hate being alone. They do. Narcissists hate being alone. And that's a secret that they keep. They're actually, very much people that want people around them all the time. They act all tough and strong, but they really don't want to be alone. They actually want people around them all the time. So that's number two. Number three is they're constantly looking for ways to make themselves appear smarter than they are. They are. They're constantly looking for ways. They're putting people down, degrading people, or, looking for ways to be controlling, or just looking for ways to just inject things in conversation to make it appear like they're smarter than they are. Maybe they'll say something in a conversation to make it appear like they're smarter by just making a statement. They want to appear smarter than they are. They might just pick up a statement here and there and drop it in. They want to make it seem, they might just flat out lie about their background. If they need to, they might expand on their background. If they need to, they might expand on their resume if they need to. But one of the secrets that all narcissists keep is that they try to make themselves appear smarter than they are. If you've seen any of these things so far, give me a totally in the comments. I know that you guys have. So give me a totally in the comments so far. The next thing that narcissists do is they watch you. They watch you to see how they're supposed to act. They watch you to see what you're up to. They want to know what their supply is doing. They want to know what it looks like to behave in a normal person way. So they watch you for that. They're constantly watching you. I do have a whole video, by the way, on why the narcissist is always watching you. It's another super creepy thing that they do. Super creepy. I mean, I have had 2 covert narcissists in my life, which is, it's been like the worst. And I know they used to watch me all the time. And it was like, I used to say to my husband, like, why are they watching me? I really didn't know that they were even covert narcissists all the time. I just knew that these people were watching me. And now I know that is another secret that they keep. The narcissists are always watching you. So that's the next one. The next one is that they hate themselves and they hate you. They secretly hate themselves and they hate you, but they really hate themselves. They really hate themselves. And I do have a whole video on the 8 reasons that they really hate you. So definitely check that out. The 8 reasons that narcissists hate you. They hate you and they hate themselves. So that's number 5. And the last one, I told you I was going to save the best for last. And this is so important when you are going to negotiate with narcissists. So important to know. The narcissist is actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. It's true. It's absolutely true. And after 20 years of helping people, negotiate with narcissists and representing them and being on the other side of them and having to deal with them in my personal life, it's true. I definitely know this to be true. And I know everybody else is telling you that there's no way that you can win against narcissists, that negotiating with narcissists is totally futile. I'm telling you that with the right understanding of how narcissists think and the right framework, that you absolutely can win every single time. It's absolutely possible. So let's talk about that one thing that the narcissist never wants you to know. Okay, so think about it. They live their lives. Almost everything they do is a lie, right? I mean, they were born and they were fine. And from what I understand, it's definitely a nurture thing, not a nature. Yes, not a nature thing, a nurture thing. And that means that something happened to them when they were children that caused them to be injured in some way. And they started to see the world as a very scary place, and their scarcity mentality to the absolute extreme. They feel like it's like dog eat dog, like I have to survive. And the only way I can survive is by lying and manipulating and getting things and that's why they end up lying about stuff that they don't even need to lie about, and manipulating things when they don't even need to be manipulating. But it's just because that's their way of being. That's how they were born. And so they were traumatized. They felt like they needed to survive. And so they have this like this little inner self that's super fragile, that has no sense of self-worth. And they just layer on everything on the outside world to make you think, or make the whole world think, that they're this persona when they're actually this persona. And they're almost like 2 different versions of themselves. People who are fully self-present, fully self-aware, fully feeling whole and complete don't feel like they're different people when they are between, being at home, watching TV, having dinner with their family, or whatever it is that they're doing behind closed doors, versus the person that is shown to the world, that goes out, that works in the workplace, that talks to people. With narcissists, it's almost two different personas as to what they show. And even there's another layer even beyond what's at home, which is what they never want anyone to know, which is that deep thing that's going on inside of them. So there's a lot of secrets that they have, and there are a lot of things that they don't want you to know. What they want you to think is that they're better than everyone else, that they're smarter than everyone else, that they're a winner. And that's why they act the way they do. That's why they put people down all the time. That's why they're super jealous. They act very, very entitled. They use people. But all of that is because that's how they feel like they have to show up and be in the world. And so to maintain the facade of that they're better than everyone else and smarter than everyone else and have more money or have a nicer house or whatever it is that they're trying to project out into the world, they'll do whatever they can to protect that. And especially things that, how they look in the world. And that's why when you're negotiating with them, you have to be very, very aware that this is what's happening with them, because they will protect that at any cost. At the very least, put people down and, engage in control tactics, and, they're jealous and they have no boundaries and all that. But, when it comes to negotiating, you're either for them or against them. And if you're going to be against them, then you're going to be public enemy number one. And they have to see things in black and white. That's what's going on during the negotiations. They're constantly trying to test people a lot of times too. And if you want to know more about that, you should definitely check out my video on how narcissists test victims. And if you have seen this and you know that I'm right so far, give me a for sure in the comments. All right, so you ready for the big, big secret, the one that they definitely do not want you to know? And that is that little self that they have, that little fragile thing that lives inside of them is extremely afraid. They are super fear-based people, and they are afraid of everything. They're afraid of being exposed, number one, more than anything. They're afraid that you're going to leave them. That's also a paradox, because they treat you like terrible and then they don't want you to leave them, or they're actually extremely codependent. One of their biggest fears is of abandonment, actually. And so the big secret is that they are actually more afraid of you than you are of them. They're super afraid of being exposed for the fraud that they are, and they'll go to any lengths to protect that. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, that's what you have to remember. You have to keep all of these things in mind, because you're going to have to kind of keep their ego in check to a certain extent, but then also make them feel like they are potentially going to be exposed, that something might be happening to them. And so when you're building your strategy and you're building your leverage, it's really important to understand and anticipate what it is that they're going to do, what's motivating them, how are they going to behave during the negotiations, because then you can build a strategy and leverage such that you'll be able to motivate them and incentivize them into wanting to have a conversation with you. Don't think they're going to change. Don't think that you're going to be able to get them to see the error of their ways and, oh my gosh, I can't believe how I treated you or how this happened or whatever, because they're not going to do that. And the reason why they have a hard time apologizing, or they have a hard time admitting that they're wrong or that they're responsible or giving anybody credit for anything, is because they have such a fragile sense of self. It's almost like, if I do that, then I will crumble, then there won't be enough for me. They're almost like glass or something that's been very carefully meticulously protected, and they don't want to be exposed. So that's really the biggest secret of all. And that is that you are actually the stronger one. They are way more afraid of you than you are of them. And there are a lot of ways that you can build a strategy and leverage around that, so that you can walk away with getting what you want and they also feel intact. More than anything, you need to feel valued, honored, and respected, and setting yourself up so that no one and nothing can ever infringe on that. Okay, so let's talk about what will make a narcissist panic. So first of all, let's think about what a narcissist actually is. A narcissist is a person that has no inner sense of value. They have to get all of their value from external sources in the form of what we call narcissistic supply. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, definitely check out my video on that topic. But basically, they're like what I call the hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. They've got nothing going on the inside. They look really pretty on the outside, but nothing going on inside. And so they kind of try to layer on everything from the external. They're sucking the life out of every person and interaction and situation that they possibly can, to try to make themselves feel like they have some value. And it's like a black hole, basically. Of course, you can never get them to be fulfilled or feel satisfied. And so they look at every person and every situation as an opportunity for getting that supply. They literally, like sharks, seeing blood in the water. Oh, they smell it, and boom, there they are. They're after it. So they're looking for it in every possible way. But what's really going on is, because they have no inner sense of value, they're kind of like living this double life all the time. Like there's this inner scared little child that they're constantly trying to like protect. And then there's the person that they want the world to think that they are. They want the world to believe that they are. They need endless adulation. They need endless attention. And, what's interesting to me is like the massive irony of treating somebody poorly throughout an entire relationship, whether it's business or personal, and then being shocked and disgusted when you no longer want to be in the relationship with them. It's like so ironic, isn't it? But anyway, if you want to start thinking about ways to make them panic, especially in a negotiation setting, because that will start to give you leverage over them in that negotiation, then just think of it in terms of the supply, right? What is giving them supply? Is it compliments, prestige, attention, adulation, respect? Or is it controlling you, degrading you, manipulating the process, intimidating you? All of those things gives a narcissist supply. Okay, so the first thing first secret to making them panic is to stop interacting with them. If you just stop interacting with them, or at least on an emotional level, then you will start to make them panic, because they'll think, oh, why are they not coming back? Because they goad you, they trigger you, they throw barbs out there because they want you to come back. They want you to get into it. I remember there was somebody that we used to know who was a narcissist, and the guy would be like saying all kinds of insulting things to people, and then he'd go, now we're having a conversation. And you think, no, now I'm like really annoyed with you. But that's to a narcissist, that's having a conversation. So number one is stop interacting with them. Number two is not to fight back directly. You will want to fight back, but you must do it in a way that's super strategic. Okay. And I talk more about that in my video on creating leverage over narcissists in negotiations. I've also talked about it in my video called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist, which is also the name of my program, of course. So I just want you to start thinking about, yes, you do need to fight back with them, but you must do it in a way that's super strategic. Okay. So the next thing is, when you talk about leverage and creating leverage over the narcissist, you are going to want to threaten a source of narcissistic supply that's more important for them to protect than the supply that they get from making your life miserable. So threatening to expose them in some way, threatening to make them look bad in front of judges or other people that they don't want to know, like, their bad stuff out there. That's why they try to get at you before you get to them, because they don't want you to expose them. Okay. So the next thing that you can do is just totally act like you don't care. I mean, like they're doing stuff and you're just like, oh, I'm whatever. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Just so, oh, how's the weather today? Just completely like it didn't even happen. They did whatever they did to try to get a rise out of you, and you just act like you don't care. That sends them and drives them absolutely crazy, because now they up the ante. I've often said they're like 2-year-olds having a tantrum on the floor. You give in to them, and then the next time they think, okay, I'll just cry louder, scream more, kick harder, act worse. And then mom and dad will give in, and that's why I always say they're the worst right before they're ready to give up, because they act like that until finally they realize, oh, they're not giving in this time, so I just have to give up. And so that's what's really going on with a narcissist in a negotiation as well. And then the last one, of course, is going no contact or having super strong boundaries. You must do that. It will drive them crazy, but I'm telling you to do that, not just for, driving them insane and making them panic, but also for your own health and peace of mind. Okay, so let's talk about that double life of narcissists. Well, the thing is that even though they act like they are super powerful and they're constantly puffing themselves up, and they want you to think that they're smarter than you, better than you, that they act entitled, it really is just an act. The bottom line is that they are actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. They are actually the most scared little creatures on the planet. You know the old Billy Joel song, The Stranger? We all have that face that we hide away forever. We take them out and show ourselves when everyone is gone. I think he was actually talking about the narcissist. I don't know. Kind of showing my age when I talk about that song. I don't know. But honestly, that's kind of what it is. They've got this hidden face. They've kind of split into two. They were traumatized as a child. Something happened to them where, they decided that the world was a really scary place. They decided that the world is a place of survival, and it's a me and everybody else world. They live in this world of their own, this world of survival. And that's why they don't have any empathy for anyone else, because it's kind of like this oxygen thing, the airplane is going down and I have to put my mask on. And if I don't put my mask on, I'm not going to survive. And I don't think they think about it consciously. I'm sure that they don't. It's so embedded subconsciously. But like even the smallest things, the tiniest things, if they give at all, then they don't have. And somehow they won't be seen. They won't be heard. All human beings have this need to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. But people who are secure in themselves, people who know that they matter, who have that internal knowing that they matter, they know that they're seen, they know that they're heard, they have that feeling. So they don't need that constant seeking, that they don't have that desperate need to be seen and heard, and that desperate need to have admiration and adulation from the outside world constantly. And it's not just admiration and adulation, it's also this desperate need to be better than and control. That is the what I call the dark underbelly. And all that desperate need, all of that feeding, that's called supply. That supply is their oxygen, it's their lifeblood, it's their food. It's what they feed on. And there is a dark hole, a black hole that can never be fed. That is what they never want you to know. So they have this double life. There's this scared little creature inside, and then there's this other facade. And they never want you to see the scared little person underneath. And by the way, I have a whole video on how narcissists react to exposure, which you should definitely check out. And also, by the way, this is the whole key to how to negotiate powerfully with narcissists. And this is the whole key to my SLAY methodology, which is strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focusing on you, and what I teach, the self-centeredness is what drives them to exploit people. It's what drives them to use people. It's what drives them to create this facade because they don't want to be seen as failures. They create this persona. They want to be seen as winners. They have these two separate lives, this public life where they want to be seen as the winner, the best, with the right people, the prestigious friends and all that. And they spend a whole lot of time, energy, and capital to be seen as that person. And by the way, if you know that what I'm saying is right, give me a for sure in the comments or comment below what you've seen of the double lives, right? Because you know when it all comes apart, when the wheels start to fall off, how horrible it can be, right? That narcissistic injury gets triggered, that narcissistic rage comes flying out. And, you know, they hate rejection. That's the worst of it. You know, that's their worst fear. They're very easily slighted. They're actually terrified of abandonment. They'll do anything to keep people around. They're actually very, very deeply insecure people at their worst core. They certainly don't want people to see their flaws and their shortcomings. They want people to see them as special. I mean, that's the double lives that they lead. And so that's why they lead these double lives, because they really are at their core, they feel very awful about themselves. I often think of it as like the Wizard of Oz, right? So, you know, like the little man behind the curtain. Now let's talk about what those narcissists are hiding behind that mask. What is their true agenda? What is it they really want from you? So what narcissists don't want you to know is that they are actually really scared little beings inside that massive wall of ego that they build around them. Whether they are a covert narcissist, a grandiose narcissist, or a malignant narcissist, or whatever kind that you're dealing with, even maybe it's a combination of one of those, they are really, really just scared people. Something happened to them when they were a child. They were traumatized in some way, not loved enough. They came to this conclusion somehow that the world is a scary place. The world is a place that they have to survive, and it's survival of the fittest for them. It's you know, if you survive, then I can't. If you have something, then I don't have it. It's scarcity mentality at its most extreme. And so what they really don't want you to know is that they are actually the weaker one. You are actually the stronger one as their narcissistic supply. And narcissistic supply is anything that feeds their ego. It's their lifeblood, it's their oxygen, it's their food, it's what they need. And it's what they use, what they need to suck out of from every single person that they meet. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, definitely check out my video on narcissistic supply, and actually I have a whole Narcissism 101 series that defines the main terms that you need to know when you're dealing with narcissists, a whole language you were never hoping that you wanted to know, but here you are knowing it, right? But I will say that once you do know the language, and once you do understand how narcissists are, and that this is what it is that you're dealing with, it makes your life so much easier. You start to go, oh my gosh, that's what I'm dealing with. That's the world that this person lives in. It actually has nothing to do with me. I was just what they latched onto for supply. And so once you start understanding that, it makes it so much easier for you to start to formulate a plan to get out of this situation. And that's where I come in, and that's where my resources come in, and hours of free content here on YouTube, and hours of free content on my podcast. And I even have all kinds of other free resources, such as my Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, etc., because I want you to have the tools that you need step by step to get out of this situation, and have the courage to know how to do it because you have the right tools to do it. So let's now talk more about the what the narcissists are hiding. You know, what's their true agenda? Okay, so what they start off with is love bombing. And so they're hiding behind this love bombing. It's really the stage where they are grooming you. They're investing in you so that when during the devalue stage, they can get that return on their investment. It's really a form of manipulation. And if you want to know more about love bombing, you can check out my video on love bombing. But it's a form of manipulation. And so they're hiding their true agenda when they're love bombing you. They're setting themselves up to look perfect for you. Whether it's the perfect job, the perfect business partner, the perfect spouse, the perfect romantic partner, the perfect friend, the perfect neighbor, whatever it is, they're setting themselves up to be that perfect person for you so that they can, get into your world, get you into their web. It's almost like a black widow that spins you into their web. And then once you're there, they can suck the blood out of you. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but that really is what it is. So they're hiding their true agenda during that love bomb phase. And by the way, they are master manipulators. You cannot feel bad that you ended up in a relationship with a narcissist. I did too. I ended up with 2 of these heinous creatures in my life. They are no longer in my life. I am happy to say that I have gone no contact. I set those boundaries. I take the advice that I give to you. I take the information that I've learned on how to be a master negotiator, and I give that information to you. And I've taken my own advice, and it has worked. So, don't feel bad about the fact that you ended up into their lair, their web, because they have been working on becoming master manipulators since childhood. That's their way of being. So they know how to be charismatic. They know that they can't come in and start devaluing you, because then you'll never end up wanting to be near them. But then the next stage is that, part of their true agenda is that devalue stage. And that's where they start to get that return on their investment of the love bombing. That's when they start to suck that narcissistic supply right on out of you. And if you are so ready to expose them, give me a game over in the comments. So another way that they hide their true agendas is they engage their flying monkeys. And that's when you see the birth of the smear campaign and all that. And they're so good, by the way, at hiding their true agenda of making themselves look good, making you look bad, by talking to their flying monkeys. And they say things like, it was so funny. I was just talking to a guy yesterday. He was in the UK, and he was talking about how the soon-to-be ex-wife is saying things to his own family. I'm so concerned about his mental state. I'm not really sure if, he's really up to the task of having the children 50% of the time, because I'm really concerned about him. So they hide their true agenda of, taking you down, punishing you with having, you get less time with the kids or whatever, with this, I'm just really concerned. And so that's another way they hide their true agendas, like expressing feigned concern for the person by lining up their flying monkeys and engaging in an underhanded smear campaign. And the last one is playing the victim. And, they hide their true agenda of, I need the supply, I want the attention. And so they, play the victim. Oh, life isn't fair. You especially see this with the coverts. And if you want to know more about why covert narcissists are the worst, check out my video on why covert narcissists are the worst. I cannot stand them because they are the under the radar ones, and the two that I had to deal with were both covert narcissists too. And, the whole rest of the world thinks that they are so nice and, they just got a bad rap and they're just the victim. And, you're the one that caused all of their problems. You're the bad one. Life isn't fair for them. And so the world sees this and sees them as this good person, and look at you, the Satan of this thing, that you caused all of these problems, or that you're the bad one in the relationship. And they set it up so that it's, plausible that you're the bad one. And that all the stuff that they did, this plausible deniability, is what they have, because it's so subtle that it's hard to pin it back onto them, or it doesn't sound that bad if you try to explain to somebody else what's going on. Now let's talk about whether narcissists are stupid or clever. It's a very complicated question. And it was actually posed to me during a dinner with some friends, and my friend is a psychologist, and she's worked with a lot of narcissists, or people who have, more so people who have been victims or targets of narcissists and had to deal with the trauma of it and try to heal from it. And so it was a question that I decided to sort of research and dig into a little bit, because I was kind of curious about the answer myself. So one of the things for sure about narcissists is that they're very, very good at reading people. They are masters at reading people and reading their emotions and reading what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what they want, what they don't want, because it's really, really critical for them to be able to do that so that they can determine if you are going to be a good source of supply for them. And that narcissistic supply is the most important part of what it is that they're looking for from anybody. Every single person that they look at is going to be viewed in terms of, what kind of supply can you give to me? And this includes, their children. Unfortunately, I've known a lot of adults who've been victims of their parents being narcissists, which is no fun, and it's really, really hard to get over. So I just decided I'm going to look into this, because I know that they're really, really good at reading people and manipulating people. So one of the things that I learned actually by reading a blog from a narcissist was the reason why, so what she said in this particular blog was the reason why she was really good at reading people was because she had to learn how to read her own parents, who were both narcissists. And as a child, 5, 6, 7 years old, is this a good time to talk to them? Is it not? Is this a good time to ask them for something? Is it not? Am I going to get yelled at right now? Am I not? What kind of mood are they in? So they were constantly having to read the situation around them. So I thought that was a really fascinating explanation as to why they're actually very, very good at reading people, because, everything that I've learned, everything that I've read, everything that I've studied about narcissism says that it happens sometime in the narcissist's childhood. So at some point in their lives, they didn't get the love or support or care that they needed, and they determine that the world is a bad place, that they had to survive, and the only way that they could do that is through getting the narcissistic supply that they need to feed that ego. And that's just, anything that feeds their ego, and it's a black hole. You make deposits into it and never comes back out. So, the relationship always feels very unsatisfying with them because you're really not ever getting your emotional needs met. And that's because they really do not have the ability to meet your emotional needs. They're not even meeting their own. So, you can't get something from someone that they don't even have for themselves. And so that's what's really going on with them, and why they are really, really good at reading people. So I think that they're very masters at manipulating. They're very good at that. And so I think it's more of, and this is just my speculation, I think it's more that they have a skill at manipulating that, than more so than they're so smart. Now, some of them actually probably have high IQs, some of them don't, but that you can have low or high or middle average IQ narcissist, at any level. But I think that they are certainly masters at manipulating. And that's why I always talk about ethically manipulating the manipulator and creating that leverage and that strategy that you need in order to get what you want out of negotiating with a narcissist. And that's what I teach you how to do. So as far as whether or not they're smart, stupid, clever, whatever, the other thing that is really important to understand about narcissists is they do end up self-destructing. They do oftentimes collapse. And if you want to know more about what a narcissist collapse looks like, it's not pretty. Make sure you check out my video on what happens when a narcissist collapses. And they do end up self-destructing. They do end up, when they start to get desperate, they start doing things that aren't as smart. They start making mistakes. They start, going into their rages and having their, attacking and getting worse. And I often say that they do get worse before they get better. It gets worse when you're dealing with them. And when you're starting to create your strategy and surround them, what I teach you how to do is actually surround them in a silent fashion where they don't even know that it's happening until they kind of wake up and realize that they're surrounded or that they're backed into a corner. So what I teach you how to do is actually do that. Surround them so that they feel like they have no other place to go. And you do that by creating a super strong strategy and invincible leverage. So that's what's the most important thing to understand when you're negotiating with them. And if you are so ready to win against the narcissist, give me a win in the comments. So when you're dealing with them, sometimes they just seem dumb because they don't understand how to have compassion for another human being. They're not that great oftentimes at understanding, how to express emotion. I mean, sometimes I look at narcissists and I think, you'd actually be better served if you would at least pretend like you care a little bit, because then the other person feels a little bit heard, a little bit like they are valued, and would be more willing to give in a little bit. But, sometimes they kind of seem dumb when they don't know how to act in an emotional setting. So, they're really, really smart in a lot of ways, and they're really, really smart and
cunning and clever at how they are able to get people to do things, and how they're able to control people and get you to believe things. I mean, you know, gaslighting and things like that. And, you know, you're looking at evidence right in front of your face of certain things, and you question it and you go, well, maybe, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe their explanation is okay. You know, they're very good at manipulating what it is that is being said, heard, or done, and coming up with an immediate explanation for things because they've been doing it for so long. You know, there's a book called Outliers that I read a long time ago by Malcolm Gladwell that talks about how you know, people need 10,000 hours of anything in order to achieve mastery at it. Well, they have way more than 10,000 hours. They've been doing this for years. I mean, since they were children. So they are really good at coming up with a quick explanation about something, or massaging the facts that you kind of go, well, I guess, okay. I mean, you know, the example that comes to my mind is in the movie Dirty John, or that story about the man who was dating this woman, and he was a severely malignant narcissist, and he told her that he was a doctor, and he would wear his scrubs, and he would leave the house and go wherever he would go, and he'd come home and he was wearing the scrubs. And then her daughter found his diploma, and it turned out he was a nurse of some sort, a nurse anesthetist, I think, or something like that. And so when he was confronted with it, he said, well, I am a doctor. I have a doctorate. It's basically a doctor level of education. And so, you know, I guess she didn't really like the explanation, but she kind of bought it. She went with that. And you know, he knew exactly what he was trying to say that he was, and, you know, but when confronted with it, he had an immediate explanation for it. And I've seen that happen in court sometimes too, you know, where I've had a case where, you know, I was asking the husband on, you know, cross-examination about his bank statements, and, you know, how come you didn't put this bank account on this particular financial affidavit? Oh, I don't have that account anymore. It doesn't exist. And then 10 minutes later, he's referencing that account again. And, oh, you know, he's got some explanation for it right away. Well, I forgot about it, or something like that. And you think, well, you just forgot about it from 10 minutes ago. But, you know, a lot of times they do that kind of thing, and you see people believing them. And it's really, really frustrating sometimes if you feel like the judge is believing them. Like, how come you didn't see that they just lied? Why didn't you just notice that? And those are the kinds of things that can be really frustrating, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist in any kind of a litigation or negotiation situation. And that's why it's really, really important to understand these concepts. If you're trying to negotiate with a narcissist and you don't understand the concepts, or you don't understand how a narcissist thinks, especially in negotiation, then you're going to be dead in the water. Because when it comes time to negotiate with you, or any kind of discard phase when you're saying goodbye, the narcissist feels like they need to destroy you. And if you want to know more about that, check out my video on why the narcissist needs to destroy you to leave you. But that's what happens at the end of the relationship. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, sometimes it feels like they're really, really smart, but oftentimes they're actually really, really dumb too. And so just understanding that, and knowing that you're actually the stronger one for sure. You know, I've often said they didn't attach themselves to you because you have so little value. They attached themselves because you have so much value. because they knew they could get a lot of supply out of you. They're not attaching themselves to anybody that they don't think that they can get a good amount of supply from. So, the key here is that you're no longer going to be a source of supply for this narcissist. They're going to have to get it from somewhere. Let them go get it from someone else. It doesn't have to be you.
All right, so let's talk about what narcissists fear the most. Okay, so there are a lot of things that narcissists fear, and really what it comes down to is what they don't want you to know. So let's talk about the psychology of a narcissist. And when you are negotiating with them, it's really, really important to understand who it is that you're dealing with so that you can understand what motivates them. Really, what it comes down to is understanding what motivates them, understanding how to get them to shift so that you can understand how to create a strategy, so that you can understand how to create leverage. That's my whole SLAY strategy, right? Which is strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focusing on you, your case, and your position. And that's my whole SLAY methodology. And so when you're dealing with a narcissist, you have to understand that you're dealing with a person who has very little sense of self. They're actually very afraid people. They're worried that if they give anything that they're going to not have enough for themselves. It's scarcity mentality at its most extreme. Okay, they're like the hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. They look good on the outside, but there's nothing going on the inside. And the only thing that motivates them is this sense of narcissistic supply, that that they want this external validation. That's the only thing that motivates them. So what do they not want you to know? What do they fear the most? Well, number one, that they fear you more than you fear them. Okay. I mean, they're actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. And, it's like the wizard behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. They're like scared. And they put this big, huge thing up like the Wizard of Oz is like, the all great and powerful. But the truth of the matter is, they're way more afraid of you than you are of them. Right. So that's number one. Number two is they are truly the most scared little creatures on the planet. And that's why they do all the things that they do. I mean, I did a mediation with one of the most malignant narcissists ever, and he came crashing into the mediation and immediately started making unreasonable demands. Like there were these dogs that had been at his house, and the adult daughter had come over to the house and had taken the dogs. It wasn't even the wife that had taken the dogs. I was representing the wife. She didn't have the dogs. He starts off 8 o'clock in the morning. I want the dogs back. She doesn't have the dogs. I'm not mediating. I'm not doing anything until you have the dog. He doesn't want the dogs. He just wants to make a statement. He wants to demonstrate that he has control because he's afraid. Because he was afraid that this process was going to be a scary process for him. People who are not afraid, they don't do things like that. They don't act that way. So number two, they are the most scared little creatures on the planet. They really are. All right. Number three, it's what I've been saying. They have no sense of self. They're not standing in their power. They don't have that inner sense of feeling whole and complete, like that oak tree that just stands, that just moves with the wind, but really stays rooted and grounded. I mean, it's like if somebody calls you a name or whatever, and if you know that that's not what you are, it just bounces off of you. But they take it all on because they have no sense of self, and so all of their sense of anything of themselves comes from that external, comes from that sense of narcissistic supply. And that's how you create that leverage, because that's what exposes them. All right. And then that leads me to number 4. Number 4 is what they fear the most: being exposed. And that's how you build leverage, by the way, is around exposing them. And I have a lot more of this in my video, by the way, called The One Secret That the Narcissist Never Wants You to Know, which you should definitely check out, but they definitely do not want to be exposed. All right. Number 5. What's another thing that they fear the most? That you're going to fight back. That's why they say things like, oh, I'm going to take you down and I'm going to do this to you and this is what's going to happen. And because they're afraid that you're actually going to do it. They are scared to death that you're actually going to fight back. Because if you do, they actually get unbalanced. They don't want you to fight back. Believe me, they don't. Number 6, they don't want you to not need them. They want you to need them. They want to be in control of you. Oh my goodness. I had a case one time where my client was divorcing his wife, but his mother was actually in control of the entire family. It was an Italian family, and the custody evaluator actually referred to her as like the godmother, sort of like the godfather, but she was like the godmother, where she controlled the entire family through the money and the power and all of that. And the fact that my client was successful in his own right and wanted to break away from the family was the cardinal sin. And the custody evaluator actually put that in the custody evaluation. Like, he no longer needed her. And she was a malignant narcissist. So that was one of the things that happened. Like, she didn't want him to not need her. So, number 7, one of the worst fears that they have, honestly, is that you no longer think that they're relevant. Think about some of the politicians, I mean, or some of the celebrities out there. I mean, they'll do anything to stay relevant sometimes, right? I mean, anything to stay in the news, anything to stay, like, you've seen, them do crazy things just to stay on the front page, just to have reporters talking about them, because they want to stay relevant. They want to stay current. They want people to be noticing them. So that's number 7. Number 8 is that you no longer think that they matter. And number 9 is similar, which is that you've completely moved on. I mean, that is really what they fear the most. I mean, that's what really crushes them, is when you've completely wiped them from the CPU of your life. That's the way I look at it, is like your life is a computer program and you've been able to go in and just go, oh, here they are, here they are, here they are, wipe, 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 wipe. You never existed in my life. Who are you again? What's your name? Like, where somebody can actually say their name and you feel nothing. I mean, some of the best emails and messages that we get on my team are the ones where people say, I did your program, I got the results that I wanted, and wow, the surprising result that I had is that my fear has disappeared. I am no longer afraid of this person. And if you are so ready to feel that you are no longer afraid of this person or whoever it is, or any narcissist, give me an I'm ready in the comments right now, because that's what they fear the most. You're not afraid of them anymore. That you just moved on, that you're not moved by them. You're not intimidated by them. They're just a gnat flying around, you know? And really, that's the best thing for you too, by the way, because when you can get to that point, when you can get to the point where you have overcome everything that you needed to overcome with any kind of a toxic personality in your life, whether it's in your business life or your personal life. And you've gotten to a point where you've been able to not feel intimidated when you walk into a room, where you feel powerful and persuasive, and you feel whole and complete, and you feel like you are living into the person that you're meant to be, that you're meant to be here. That's living into your power. That's being who you're truly meant to be. You are a person, a soul who is having a human experience, who was meant to be here, who's meant to shine. You're not meant to be small. And that is when you are truly free. And that is what the narcissist fears the most, that you're living in your power and truly free. Okay. Okay. So that narcissist has hurt you so many times. How about you know what hurts the narcissist the most for a change? And this is really important because this really has so much to do with how to powerfully negotiate with narcissists. And this is something that I teach all the time. This is something that I really, really share in my negotiation courses and in my training. So this is the critical piece. And by the way, you need to watch till the end, because the ending is going to absolutely shock you. All right. So the one thing they really don't want more than anything is they don't want to be exposed. There's different levels of things for narcissists. They don't want to be exposed, meaning they want to look good at all times. They don't want to be exposed. So one of the main things that could really hurt a narcissist is criticism in front of people they respect. And this could come in a lot of different forms. So making them look bad in front of others, criticizing their intelligence, criticizing their looks, their success. You could be out to dinner. You could say something so benign, you know, like we were out at a gas station and he wasn't pumping the gas himself or something like that. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm just totally making something up. This isn't something that ever happened to me in my real life, just so you know. And the husband could like go flipping out over that. I mean, something that you wouldn't even think wouldn't even be a thing. He didn't drink all of his coffee. I mean, anything. And all of a sudden, like, that's a huge thing. You just never know what could set them off sometimes, because sometimes I always joke that narcissists hear tones like dogs hear whistles. I mean, sometimes you could say something to them and they go, oh, you know, you said something to me in a very sarcastic way. And, you know, I didn't say anything, but they hear that as a criticism. Sometimes they take things in a way that's a criticism that's not even a criticism, and they're very easily slighted. They don't like that. Sometimes it's just even sharing personal information about them with other people they perceive to be personal. They don't like that. Sometimes it's having an achievement invalidated. They don't like that. There's a lot of different things, but if they are criticized in front of people in a certain way, they definitely don't like that. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, certainly any kind of potential exposure is going to be a great way to create leverage. In my SLAY methodology, which is strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you, I talk a lot about how to create that strategy, that leverage. And leverage is oftentimes tied up in that potential exposure because they really don't want to be criticized. They really don't want to be exposed. In my video, How to Make a Narcissist Panic, I talk about how to make a narcissist panic. And you can definitely check that out if you'd like. They definitely do not want to be exposed. So that is one thing where you could really hurt that narcissist. Okay. Number one, criticism in front of people they respect. All right. Number two, it could even be more in a private setting, but being ignored or being told no. Any kind of thing where you're ignoring the narcissist. And by the way, this is one of those things, good for the goose, not good for the gander, or, you know, gander, goose, whatever. Who's ghosting all the time? Yeah. Narcissists have no problem doing that to you, but definitely can't ignore them. I mean, they will flip out if you ignore them or tell them no, or just any kind of thing where they feel like they're not in control. They don't like that. Or if you tell them they're not good enough or they're worthless or anything like that, of course, they don't like that. And who likes that anyway? I mean, obviously, but they really don't like that. I mean, if you tell somebody who has a strong sense of self that they're not good enough, that they're not worthless or something like that, they might go, okay, whatever. But if you tell a narcissist that, they might get extremely defensive. They may not like that at all. You really don't want to do that sort of thing, even private with a narcissist. They can projection, deflection, especially if they can be abusive or something like that. You really have to be careful about that as well. And if any of this is resonating with you guys so far, give me a totally in the comments or tell me what you guys have seen so far as what hurts the narcissist the most. Okay, so those are the first two. Now I'm going to unveil what I told you is, I think, going to shock some of you. This is not what you normally would think of when it comes to narcissists, but it's true. And I've told you guys many times that the narcissist is this most scared little person on the planet, deep down inside. And so the last one, the thing that scares them the most, the thing that would hurt them the most, number 3, is being abandoned. Yep. The narcissist is really, really afraid of being abandoned, and that would hurt them the most. But let me tell you, you cannot save them. And staying with them will absolutely suck your soul. It will drain the life out of you. Believe me, I know. And I was never with a narcissist in a romantic situation. My situation was, I was in a business situation, and then we have one in our family, my husband and I. And there's a reason they're called energy vampires, okay, guys? You can't expect that they will be rehabilitated. You empaths out there, I see you out there. You think you can save them, and you cannot. No, you can't. You can't fix what's broken. Something happened deep down inside in them a long time ago. You can't fix it. You can't fill that void. It's a hole that cannot be filled. They have a fear of being abandoned. That will hurt the narcissist the most. You can't fix that. Okay. Now, if you are dealing with a narcissist, then that narcissist is probably driving you crazy, or actually maybe even feeling like insane. And you're thinking, is there any way to make them panic? Yes, there is. But first, let me just go through a couple of the things that they do to you, because it's important to understand that so that you can understand the flip side of it and what makes them panic. So a couple of their go-to things are things like gaslighting. Gaslighting is trying to make you think that you're crazy. And what they do is they'll say, oh, we talked about that, or don't you remember that, or no, that's not how that went. Something like that, and shifting what they said, shifting what you guys talked about, shifting what you said, so that it meets their agenda, which is to manipulate you and to make you think that you're crazy. So gaslighting is definitely one of their favorite tactics. Another one of their favorite tactics is lying. They are total pathological liars. The crazy thing I think about narcissists is that they'll lie about stuff that they don't even need to lie about. You think to yourself, why are you lying about that? You don't even need to lie about that. But the thing is that narcissists think that they need to manipulate everything. They don't believe that they can get anything just in a normal way. They feel like they have to lie. So they will lie about even things that are readily verifiable, which is the thing that's pretty crazy. And in a lot of my other videos, I talk about making sure that you document everything that you do, because they will eventually contradict themselves. They will eventually put things in writing that are completely contradictory to what is actually happening or what they have said before. Now, they'll have some explanation for it, but that doesn't mean that you won't eventually be able to use it against them. Okay, so number 2 thing that they do on a very regular basis is lie. The third thing they try to do a lot of is intimidation tactics. So what I mean by that is that they will constantly try to make you be afraid. So they intimidate you in all sorts of ways. You're afraid that they're going to hurt you. They're afraid they're going to expose you. You're afraid that they're going to take your kids. They're very, very, very good at figuring out what your weaknesses are, what means the most to you, and that's what they'll go for. So if you're a mother and you don't want to lose your kids, they'll say, I'm taking the kids and you'll never see your kids again. If you are dependent upon this person for support, they'll say, I'm going to take everything and leave you in the street. If you want money from this person, then they'll use that against you. So whatever they can use against you, they will, and they'll scare you into thinking like, oh my God, my life is going to be so terrible if I cross this person. And there's all different types of intimidation tactics that they use. Some are more violent than others. If they're more of a malignant type of narcissist, some of them are a little bit more stealth if they're like a covert narcissist. But, all narcissists use the same kinds of tactics. For the most part, gaslighting is definitely one, lying is definitely one as well, and intimidating you in some ways is one as well. And another thing that they often try to do is triangulate. This is where they get their flying monkeys involved, and they get you to believe that all these other people have lined up a side by side with them, supporting them. And if you cross this person or you come out and try to expose them in some way, then you're going to be the one that looks crazy, and you're going to be the one that looks insane, or you'll lose all your friends, because everybody believes that this person is absolutely wonderful. And so obviously you're the one that must be insane. So the term flying monkeys comes back from the Wizard of Oz, and it was when the Wicked Witch had her flying monkeys on her side. And that's what narcissists do. They all do it. They all try to make you think that they're like so close to all these other people. And so therefore you shouldn't come out and try to say anything bad about this person because everybody else thinks this person is amazing. These are just a few of the things that they do. If this is all sounding all too familiar to you, go ahead and give me a totally in the comments. And if you are dealing with these things with the narcissist, which I'm sure you are, make sure you check out my video on self-care when coping with a narcissist. I will drop a link to that below. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself when you're dealing with a narcissist. I'm sure all these things sound really familiar to you, but in the end, okay, great. What can you do about it? So here's the not so secret about narcissists. That is that they are actually the most scaredy cats on the planet. They have no sense of inner value. I've often said they're like the chocolate Easter bunnies that are hollow inside. They have no sense of internal value whatsoever. So they've got to go and get all of their sense of value from the external. And that's what we call narcissist supply. It's in the form of compliments, money, prestige, whatever it is that they can get to get attention for themselves on the external. But the thing is, they're super afraid. So if you push back on them enough, they will back down. So what causes a narcissist to panic, to feel stunned? Number one, brutal honesty. They expect, because they're pathological liars, that most people lie too. They really just expect that everybody else is just as bad as they are. They don't understand what it's like to be a normal person. They've never been one, so they don't get that. They don't get that people out there actually have integrity. They understand the concept of it, but they just really don't believe that anybody else has it. So if you're just brutally honest with them, it kind of stuns them and they're not exactly sure what to do with that. So for example, like if they, a covert narcissist is all often sick. That's one of the things that they do. They have this whole shtick that they're unwell in some way, they can't work or whatever it is. There's always some reason to feel sorry for the covert narcissist. And so, if one day they're super sick and then the next day they show up at something fun, something that they want to actually be involved in, because of course they don't want to miss out on getting attention for themselves, just without any kind of sarcasm or attitude or whatever, just say, "Oh, I'm so surprised that you're here. You said you were so sick yesterday." And you have to be careful, because if you say with any kind of tone whatsoever, they're like super sensitive. They can, they can sense it no matter what level of sarcasm it is. They'll feel it, they'll sense it. Even if it's not there, they might think it's there. So just make sure you're really saying it like as if you're reporting the news. I always say, like, just the facts, ma'am, right? Just, "Oh, I'm surprised you're here. You said you were so sick yesterday." They won't know what to do with that. So brutal honesty is number one. Okay, number two is pushing back. This is something that they don't expect, especially if you are used to giving in and acquiescing to whatever it is that they want. They will be really surprised, and it will make them panic if you push back against them. If they start to realize this person they thought they had total control over is no longer listening to everything that they do or doing everything that they say or buying into everything that they're selling, it will stun them and it will start to panic them a little bit, because they'll be going, "What's going on here? Why is this person pushing back against me?" Something like that. Okay. So that's number two. Okay. And number three is exposing them. They do not want to be exposed for any reason whatsoever. If you really want to throw a narcissist into panic mode, let them think that they're going to be exposed, or actually expose them. If their flying monkeys find out who they really are, or if somebody that they respect gets to see some side of them that they don't want seen, then that's a really huge way to make a narcissist panic. So for example, in a mediation situation, if you know something about the narcissist that they don't want the other side to know, you might subtly say, like, that fact is going to come out. In my world, it could be that the person has a sexually transmitted disease and they are a doctor in the community. They probably don't want the world to know that. So especially if they got it by cheating on you and everything else. So sometimes, not going to court can be a huge motivator for a narcissist. It can really make them panic if they think that, the world is going to see things about them that they have taken painstaking efforts to hide and make sure nobody else knows. So number three is exposing them. Okay, and number four is losing control in any way. So remember what we talked about, that they're the most scared people on the planet. They're really like the bullies, you know how in A Christmas Story, that old movie, that the little boy fought back against the bully and then the bully ended up running away. You're really just figuring out what their level is, and they're doing the same thing to you, by the way. So every time you push back a little bit against them, they'll act up even more. They'll do more of their lying, more of their control tactics, more of their intimidation, more of their narcissistic rage. It will spurn them, because they'll think, okay, I just need to clamp down a little bit harder against this person so that they'll behave and get back under my layer of control. Or they might start love bombing again and then devaluing, love bomb, devalue. They'll start doing this campaign of love bombing again, because they're trying to get you back into their layer of control. They're panicking. So losing control is something that really sends them into a tizzy. The reason they do all the things that they do, gaslighting, manipulation, lying, all the things that I talked about at the beginning of this video, is because they're trying to assert control over you because they are so insecure underneath. And the way that you can make them panic is by having them lose some of that control. And, you know, just like if you have a 2-year-old that has a tantrum, they're conditioning the parents. It's like, okay, if I scream loud enough, if I have enough of a tantrum here, if I cry loud enough, then mommy and daddy will give me what I want. And if you give in, as a parent to that child, then they'll know next time I just need to scream louder, I just need to scream longer, and eventually they'll give in to what I want. So what the narcissist is doing is trying to figure out at what level do I need to act at to get this person back into my layer of control. And if you give into that, then they know I just need to be that much louder, that much more awful next time in order to get this person to come back to my layer of control. So if you really want to make a narcissist panic, let them realize that you're no longer buying in to that stuff. When they start losing control, that's when they super panic. Okay, so let's talk about what will make a narcissist panic. So first of all, let's think about what a narcissist actually is. A narcissist is a person that has no inner sense of value. They have to get all of their value from external sources in the form of what we call narcissistic supply. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, definitely check out my video on that topic. But basically, you know, they're like what I call the hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. They've got nothing going on the inside. They look really pretty on the outside, but nothing going on inside. And so they kind of try to layer on everything from the external. They're sucking the life out of every person and interaction and situation that they possibly can to try to make themselves feel like they have some value. And it's like a black hole, basically. Of course, you can never get them to be fulfilled or feel satisfied. And so they look at every person and every situation as an opportunity for getting that supply. They literally, like sharks, you know, seeing blood in the water. Oh, they smell it and boom, there they are. They're after it. So they're looking for it in every possible way. But what's really going on is because they have no inner sense of value, they're kind of like living this double life all the time. Like there's this inner scared little child that they're constantly trying to like protect. And then there's the person that they want the world to think that they are. They want the world to believe that they are. They need endless adulation. They need endless attention. And, you know, what's interesting to me is like the massive irony of treating somebody poorly throughout an entire relationship, whether it's business or personal, and then being shocked and disgusted when you no longer want to be in the relationship with them. It's like so ironic, isn't it? But anyway, if you want to start thinking about ways to make them panic, especially in a negotiation setting, because that will start to give you leverage over them in that negotiation, then just think of it in terms of the supply, right? What is giving them supply? Is it compliments, prestige, attention, adulation, respect? Or is it controlling you, degrading you, manipulating the process, intimidating you? All of those things gives a narcissist supply. Okay, so the first thing first secret to making them panic is to stop interacting with them. If you just stop interacting with them, or at least on an emotional level, then you will start to make them panic, because they'll think, oh, why are they not coming back? Because they goad you, they trigger you, they throw barbs out there because they want you to come back. They want you to get into it. I remember there was somebody that, we used to know who was a narcissist, and the guy would be like saying all kinds of insulting things to people, and then he'd go, now we're having a conversation. And you think, no, now I'm like really annoyed with you. But that's to a narcissist, that's having a conversation. So number one is stop interacting with them. Number two is not to fight back directly. You will want to fight back, but you must do it in a way that's super strategic. Okay. And I talk more about that in my video on creating leverage over narcissists and negotiations. I've also talked about it in my video called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist, which is also the name of my program, of course. So I just want you to start thinking about, yes, you do need to fight back with them, but you must do it in a way that's super strategic, okay? So the next thing is, when you talk about leverage and creating leverage over the narcissist, you are going to want to threaten a source of narcissistic supply that's more important for them to protect than the supply that they get from making your life miserable. So threatening to expose them in some way, threatening to make them look bad in front of judges or other people that they don't want to know, like, their bad stuff out there. That's why they try to get at you before you get to them, because they don't want you to expose them. Okay. So the next thing that you can do is just totally act like you don't care. I mean, like they're doing stuff and you're just like, oh, I'm whatever. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Just so, oh, how's the weather today? Just completely like it didn't even happen. They did whatever they did to try to get a rise out of you, and you just act like you don't care. That sends them and drives them absolutely crazy, because now they up the ante. I've often said they're like 2-year-olds having a tantrum on the floor. You give in to them, and then the next time they think, okay, I'll just cry louder, scream more, kick harder, act worse, and then mom and dad will give in. And that's why I always say they're the worst right before they're ready to give up, because they act like that until finally they realize, oh, they're not giving in this time, so I just have to give up. And so that's what's really going on with a narcissist in a negotiation as well. And then the last one, of course, is going no contact or having super strong boundaries. You must do that. It will drive them crazy, but I'm telling you to do that, not just for, driving them insane and making them panic, but also for your own health and peace of mind.